Yeah, I just want to talk about why I don't believe NASA. So NASA is an abbreviation for National Aeronautics and Space Administration. It's a government. It's an American government agency. What straight off, what I would say is, governments lie all the time, especially the American governments or the different administrations they've had over the decades have told a lot of lies, which have led to the invasion of many countries by the American military, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, and we see that they support Israel as well. We've had North Korea in the past, Vietnam. Many countries have been invaded by the American military, uh, mostly because of their propaganda. And in fact, what I would say, without going into too much detail, is that America as a nation is fighting all these wars on behalf of the papacy. Hopefully, in the near future, I'll go into I'll do a video explaining all that. But for those who want to look into that issue straight away, you can go to Revelation 13, where it talks of two beasts. The first beast mentioned is actually the papacy, and then the second beast mentioned is America. I just say I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I also don't want to leave you hanging. So the papacy or the Catholic Church doesn't have a military of its own. So what they do is they use other countries to fight their wars. Now during the Dark Ages, the Catholic Church, the papacy, used Spain and France to fight their wars. But nowadays, they use America to do that. That's why we see America intervening and toppling governments. Most of that is done through the CIA. So governments tell lies all the time, especially the American government. So I don't believe anything NASA says because of that reason. So NASA has a budget of 25 billion a year, which works out to about 69.5 million a day. And something else I found is that the so-called astronauts. So just going back to the budget, just going back to NASA's budget, I think it's a massive waste of money, really, to be engaging in all these false, I call them false projects because NASA is not doing what they say they're doing. All this talk of going to the moon and going to Mars is nonsense because if you go to the book of Genesis, you find that God put a firmament above the earth when He created this place. So we can't leave Earth. If you look at most of the spaceships or the spacecrafts that and even the satellites, they are basically CGI. They are computer generated images. So they are basically, and NASA's getting all this money from American taxpayers to produce cartoons. That's what they're doing. So they're actually stealing taxpayers' money. I was just going to explain that the astronauts are actually actors. And also just going to the NASA logo. If you look at the NASA logo on Google, you find that it shows the forked tongue of a snake. Uh, it's in red. You might not. I didn't even realize it myself before someone explained that it's actually the snake of a tongue that's on it. And we know that the one of the representations of Satan is a tongue, even in the Holy Scriptures. And Satan is known as the father of lies. So NASA is telling us lies basically about what they say they're doing. It is said that Confucius said signs and symbols rule the world, not words or laws. Um, so I've just spoken about the NASA logo and how it shows the tongue of a snake. Then if you look at some other logos as well that different companies have, they seem to have these funny logos with kind of like hidden meanings. It's kind of like some like to use the expression hidden in plain sight. The Apple logo shows what looks like an apple or some kind of fruit with a bite taken out of it. Um, And then we also have the all-seeing eye on the US dollar. There are many symbols out there that show us. It's kind of it's almost like a language. Basically, they're communicating with each other. You know, when I say they, I'm talking about those in the secret societies. They're communicating with each other, and even on the news, when you hear that, you know, there was a disaster and 33 people died, you know, 660 something point six something, you know, when they talk like that, you know, it's basically it's signal language for the insiders, mainly those in the secret society, so that they know that whatever is being spoken about is a hoax. Basically, this happened a lot during COVID, where we would hear that, you know, a 33-year-old man died, but I mean, it's like there'll be no name given for this man who had died or this woman who had died. It's just they would say that this person was 33 years old. The number 33 pops out quite a lot in the media, because basically it's a sign to those who are watching, so that they know that the whole thing is a hoax. Basically, the Alfa Romeo logo shows a man being eaten by a snake. Just go back, go to Google and do a search for the Alfa Romeo logo, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The WHO logo, and when I say WHO, I mean the World Health Organization, shows a snake and a Roman wreath. And then what I find really interesting about the logo for for the World Health Organization is that it shows a flat Earth map on it. Once again, a signal to the insiders, so that they know that that's actually the true map of the world. And also another place where we find the flat Earth map is on the United Nations logo. So NASA claims that they went to the moon in 1969, but when asked why they haven't gone since 1969, why they don't go now? They say they've destroyed the technology and it's hard to rebuild it. So if you look at different types of technology that we have here on this earth, including the phone that I'm using, the phone is continuous. Phones are continuously being upgraded in terms of how advanced they are. But for some reason, NASA can't. You know, they went to the moon allegedly on the very first try, and they are now not able to do it again. And they say that they destroyed the technology. Why would you destroy the technology that allowed you to complete a feat that they say is the most marvelous piece of engineering that allowed them to go to the moon, but now they can't do it. It doesn't even make sense. And a lot of the footage that was shown initially when they claimed to have gone to the moon is gone missing as well. So President Richard Nixon, allegedly spoke to an astronaut on a landline phone. There were no mobile phones those days. They claim that Richard Nixon, the president at the time, spoke to one of the astronauts on the moon on a landline phone, which is obviously nonsense. But in 2025, we still can't get good mobile phone coverage. So NASA's photos of the globe, Earth, are created with programs similar to Photoshop. Now, I've mentioned a few times now in my videos that I actually studied art and design at the Harare Polytechnic, and one of the programs that we used to use to create fictitious photos is a program called Photoshop. I think most people know that program, but there are other even more advanced advanced programs that are used to create fictitious videos and photos, and even now we have AI, which can be used to create something that's not real, that looks real. So the photos, the so-called photos of the spinning globe Earth that have been produced over the decades, none of them are actually real. They've been produced with through by computer generated images, as computer generated images, and some of them by Photoshop. So we actually don't have a real photo of a globe Earth. All of them have been produced on computers. So NASA actually employs artists to create photos as well. You know, the photos that we see of distant planets and the galaxies and in the Milky Way, all these are produced on computers. They actually employ artists to produce them, and then the artists will use their imagination to show us what they think that place looks like. So whether it's Jupiter or Mars, most of these places that we are shown on video, they're actually fake. In fact, a lot of the places that we are told are planets, and oh, this is the photo of Pluto, and this is a photo of such and such a planet. They're actually just basically they are stars, and what stars are. They are those who are researching our uh, you know those who are into astronomy and have the equipment and powerful telescopes. When they look at some of these things that we're being told are planets, and the NASA is going to send a spacecraft over there with human beings so they can start a colony over there or whatever. Such as we've been told about Mars for several years now, and it still hasn't happened. Some of those places are just stars, and what stars are, according to those who are independent of NASA or any government agencies, is that they are basically lights in the sky. It's not somewhere where you can go and land. But everyone can do their own research. You don't have to believe what I'm saying. Just bear in mind that, like I'm saying said at the very beginning, NASA is a government agency, and governments lie all the time. I'd already mentioned this, but the so-called satellites that we are shown they're basically just drawings or cartoons. If satellites are real, why would they need to show us cartoons? They would show us the real thing, but every time we're just shown cartoons or computer generated images. And I'm not denying that they do have something up there. They have lots of they have lots of high altitude balloons that float around above the Earth, and they are used mostly for telecommunications, but they are not satellites like the ones we are shown in the drawings or in the computer generated images that I've just talked about. In fact, NASA is the how do they say it? NASA is the biggest customer in the United States when it comes to the gas that they use to make the balloons float up into the sky. I can't remember whether it's helium or something. They buy the most of that gas to be able to send their balloons high up into the sky. So if they have satellites and we have satellites floating above us, why do they only have to buy so much of this gas to get the balloons to float? What we know is that anything that goes up into the sky has to come down. The only way that can be stopped from happening is if that they can make whatever it is that they're sending up into the sky float. And one of the gases that they use is the very gases that I've spoken about that NASA buys in large quantities. So NASA promotes the theory of the globe Earth, which I've already referred to, that we are spinning in space on around Earth with no one in control. All this is contrary to the Holy Scriptures and our senses, because we can't sense any movement and we can't see any movement. So NASA promotes this lie of bending water. They show that water is bending around this globe Earth, which is a scientific impossibility. And then they tell us that Australians are walking upside down, because Australia. That's why Australia is referred to as a continent that's down under. So a very good video to watch is one called "A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon," which was produced by Bart Sibrel, who was actually also recently interviewed by Candace Owens. And then he also wrote a book called Moon Man, which says that the moon landings were filmed in an airplane hangar in Texas, and even President Johnson went there, and the whole thing was kept secret. Okay, that's what I wanted to say about NASA. Don't believe the lies.